Hello, everyone, once again, welcome to Infinite Discoveries, where we explore world affairs, philosophy, history, the social and behavioral sciences, spirituality, arts, and culture with academics, scholars, activists, and visionaries. As always, we are your three happy hosts, respectively, Rich Brago, Miguel Rodriguez, and Aurobindo Mahapatra. If you want to put further faces to the names, feel free to visit our website, infinitediscoveries.org. And if you want to look for me specifically, search for the good-looking guy. Speaking of which, today we have an even better-looking guy. And that's usually not allowed on this show, but we've made an exception because he's so impressive. And we're so delighted to have him and honored to have him. Shai Tubali is not only distinguished in his field and his life's work, but he's also, as you may know, a well-established and well-known spiritual visionary and teacher. He's best known for his talks and seminars, but has also authored numerous books and articles on the topic of many things, but human transformation, perhaps in general, would be a good way to encapsulate it. And I, of course, had the opportunity. There really are too numerous to mention, but I did have the opportunity recently to review one of his more scholarly works on transformative philosophy in general and Krishnamurti in specifically, which hopefully we'll get a chance to converse more about. I certainly have tons of questions for him about those topics. He's a genuine example of what's often described as a perennial philosopher, and he addresses perpetually important themes, I'd say, from cross-cultural traditions in philosophy, psychology, and spirituality around the world. His own work involves the practical goal of facilitating personal transformations in people's lives through the wisdom of those traditions. So once again, Shai, thank you so much for taking the time. It's a delight to have you and welcome.
What a summary.
It's exhausting, I know.
So eloquently put. Thank you. And I'm so happy to be with you. It's such a joy starting this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, again, I have tons of questions. I'm sure my colleagues do as well, as you know. And I kind of gave you an idea what I was sort of interested in, among many other things, when we were talking about this in our preliminary correspondence. So I guess, I don't know, maybe a good way to start would be just to hear a little bit, even if only briefly, about your background with regard to what made you interested in the spiritual path that you're on in general, and then the transformative philosophical tradition that you talk about so often in general. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Okay, I think starting with the background story may be helpful for our discussion to flourish. Well, I would say I had become keenly interested in fundamental questions such as what is the meaning of life and who am I already at the age of 21. And at first, well, I was trying very unsuccessfully to find these answers at the university. So
we've all suffered from that.
This illness, yes. So I was seeking to find answers in South Asian philosophy. And then I think at a certain point I realized looking at my religious studies professor reading from paper her ready lectures without any life in it, this made me realize that the answers would not be found there. So I actually left after only a few classes. At that time, I was a journalist and a novelist, but I left even that behind, all this promising career behind, and I moved to an actual practice. This includes visiting India several times, meeting living gurus, studying from deceased gurus such as Krishnamurti. One of Krishnamurti's books actually transformed my life, just reading it.
Which one?
Freedom from the known. It
had the same effect on me, just to let you know.
Oh.
That very book. It's fascinating that you say that. Yeah.
I see.
Go ahead.
So then I embarked on a journey of intense self-search, and at a certain point, already at the age of 23, a certain direct revelation took place. Krishnamurti speaks of insight. Perhaps we will explore this term throughout our talk. He speaks of insight as the perception of the unreal that results in the revelation, in the discovery of the real, of that which already exists or which permanently exists. So this insight did take place to a certain degree and made me realize that, well, the complete falsity of the personal self. I simply looked into the nature of the self and saw that it was absolutely non-existent. And as a result, a certain universal consciousness, a certain universal I amness simply spread throughout the entire space, and I was it. So this complete identity, it resulted in perfect bliss and unconditional love and tears and laughter, and also the need to withdraw for a whole silence. Because I just couldn't communicate or explain what had taken place. So I became a teacher of spiritual transformation, of inner transformation. And later, at the age of 33, after 7 years of studying with an American yogi, I was initiated into a Hindu tradition, specifically the Nityananda tradition. And he urged me to teach. So ever since, my teaching, is mainly inspired by, though not limited to, Eastern philosophy and practice, because sometimes I even interpret the Gospels. And after about 20 years, I returned to the university because I felt this hunger for profound intellectual research, this need to combine objective and subjective study. It's a study of consciousness, and I think that what I missed in the spiritual world is seriousness, depth, real inquiry, real engagement with questions. Interestingly, I've never studied at the university, not even a single class. I immediately entered a purely research-based master's degree program, and then continued to a PhD program. So that is, I think, the background, because at the end of the journey, I have synthesized the two worlds, and I think that this is why we're meeting now, because our meeting thrives on the border, right? That separates and unites the two worlds.
Can I ask one question, Rich?
Of course.
So thank you, Shai. You are just telling the story of your personal journey. So did you encounter obstacles on the path? It's a very excellent journey. You are doing yoga and sadhana. Sometimes you have problems from family, from your friends. So did you encounter any kind of obstacles on the path?
Oh, yes. I think it's not a spiritual path unless you encounter plenty of obstacles along the way, right? But one thing I would say was an advantage. I was only 23 at that time, and I really had very little to leave behind. You see, when spiritual teachers tell you, the sages tell you, leave the world behind. So I said, well, yes, no problem. There was not much to leave behind. There were not many attachments. But then, even when you do take the leap, you realize then that you need to face some serious challenges. For instance, experiencing the dissolution of your familiar emotional system. Suddenly you don't feel in the same way, and that is terrifying. Or the fact that my nervous system was definitely not prepared for any kind of what they call Kundalini activation. So I actually experienced a Kundalini crisis for 2 years. And only through this American yogi could I actually rehabilitate and return to a stable state, because I think that I was prematurely waking up. That's so these kind of problems. Not to mention, yes, please.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it will be fascinating to read those experiences sometime. Yeah. So yeah.
I just yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. There's so many paths I want to go down now, and I hadn't anticipated that. But it's so fascinating. I got to ask. So what is it? What was it like, and what were the obstacles? Well, I guess you described what they were, because boy, you think of enlightenment as being just something I've always wanted. I mean, right? I maybe vainly, but it sounds like it's not as easy as you might think. Then I guess it's not just a state of pure bliss where all life's problems are resolved and all the universe's questions are answered, and then there's the end sign, and you live happily ever after. I gather that's just where the path begins. Is that what you're sort of saying?
Well, you know, Richard, that in my own tradition, the Nityananda tradition, they usually say that one needs to wait 21 years for 21 years before teaching others, because it requires at least 21 years until the personality becomes reintegrated and also purified, because there are still certain karmic tendencies that need to be washed away. So I think this is very wise, and I think that the major problem for us in the West, in modern times, when you embark on a non-traditional journey, non-traditional path, is that your journey, even your mystical revelations included, it takes place outside of any traditional context, any ethical context. You don't have instructions. You don't follow a certain way of life. So this is so open in actually dangerous ways.
Yeah.
So I think this was one of the greatest challenges, because in a way I needed to define my own way and to discover my own ethical approach.
Fascinating. You know, I recently read an article in the magazine. Some of you guys might be acquainted with it, and maybe you definitely are. Tricycle, I think it's called. It's a magazine of Buddhist studies, sort of a popular magazine of Buddhist studies. And I think it was in there a few months ago. I came across an article about people on the path to enlightenment in monasteries and so forth who literally have who experience, as they develop sort of spiritually, psychotic breaks. I mean, they really are going to deep depressions, and because you don't hear that kind of thing usually about enlightenment. But it's fascinating how they were saying these things unless you're really prepared for this path, it's not something to take lightly, because that can happen. Hearing that quick mention of some of the things that you had to deal with, I can kind of see how that would be the case.
Exactly. Yes.
You go ahead.
Because there are two levels of maturity, of maturation that have to be accomplished prior to that, and one is is at the level of your nervous system, the level of your ability to conduct intense spiritual energy, and the second is psychological maturity. And when you suffer from too many impurities inside, what happens is that actually they become aggravated in the process of transformation, and actually they can sometimes find a certain strange and twisted form of justification. For instance, you feel that you're a god. Now, if you're not prepared for this experience of identity of yourself as the Godhead, what would you conclude? And you will find yourself a megalomaniac, or you will find yourself aggressive or arrogant. So we don't know how to handle it unless we are learning how to humble ourselves, how to develop a certain maturity that cannot twist the implications and the interpretation of our spiritual revelation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, and I know Aurobindo literally is studying and say on this path himself to one degree or another. Not that I want to put you on the spot, Aurobindo, but I guess then that would be the reason for. I absolutely wasn't planning on asking these questions. This is really interesting. I'm just it's just too intriguing. I guess that would then be the reason for why you need to really practice certain, because I always just thought, oh, that's BS. What's that? Like dietary practice, all the path of yogas, for instance, right? The diet and lifestyle, the brahmacharya path, right? And all that kind of thing. That's really interesting. Because it always seemed to me like, I don't know, enlightenment, especially after reading Krishnamurti, incidentally, right? Because he's sort of like, oh, what's all, he was very dismissive of all this kind of stuff, right? And it's like, 1 minute it will dawn on you and you just pay attention. It sounded like that's what I was reading from him, right? Just pay attention closely and be silent. And that silence will come upon you, and just like that, there you are. It's all resolved. You don't need all these paths to enlightenment and all the rituals and the the daily habits and all that kind of stuff. Am I wrong? Isn't there sort of and I think that's sort of what we were corresponding about a little bit.
Exactly. Yes.
Isn't there that sort of strain of thought in Krishnamurti to some extent?
Well, I would say that this is also one of the dangers of Krishnamurti's thought, because I think that my study explores transformative philosophy. You are, of course, aware of that, and one of the elements, or one of the characteristics of transformative philosophy, is that it consists of at least 5 different components. One is the transformation of the mind and the purification of the mind. The second is internal and external practices. The third is the theory, the discourse, the theoretical discourse, also the ethical discourse, of course. Then there is the communal or dialogical element, and then there is well, I forgot that for now.
I got that. I got the. Incidentally, I don't have a video about that. It's literally, I could have sworn rifling through, I've seen that. And again, I don't want to hog the conversation. I'm sure other people have questions, but I'm just curious. And this is sort of a pivot in a way. You find, I gather, from your writing, that those characteristics are all found in various ways then in the transformative traditions around the world that you refer to often. Is that not the case?
Yes, exactly. And I think that this is what is so unique and what is so intriguing about the practice of transformative philosophy. You see, I think that Krishnamurti overlooked. By the way, I just recall the 5th element, which is way of life. Of course, this is the resulting a way of life that one needs to demonstrate in order to embody the truth that one has understood, has realized. Now, Krishnamurti was focusing only on one ingredient. And he actually said, forget about all the rest. They will somehow flourish of their own accord. And I think that this is not possible. I think that we need to acknowledge this traditional heritage that tells us that we need to have our mystical revelations placed in a certain broader context of practice, ethics, and so on. Perhaps Krishnamurti was, well, a unique individual that could actually thrive on insight alone. I think that is not the case for most of us.
Yeah. And I guess even, one of the, among the many traditions that you refer to in your research, you talk about, say, the Zen tradition. I'm thinking of sort of the sudden enlightenment school of Zen Buddhism, right? We're all familiar with that, I'm sure, where that sort of resonates to some extent with the same kind of spirit that Krishnamurti talks about, right? And you have all these stories, right, in the Zen tradition where people suddenly, they become enlightened and they get up and they walk out of the monastery and never do anything, right? Because it's all done and they don't need that anymore. But I guess even in that tradition, those guys have been preparing their whole lives. They open the window and the wind blows in by itself, but they had to open the window and they spent all their lives, I guess, in preparation for that, I suppose. So
exactly, because we need to understand when we have this kind of dispute between the gradual enlightenment adherents and the sudden enlightenment advocates, we realize that in the end, both traditions require a long preparation. Both traditions, they thrive, their practices thrive within a ritual-based, ethical-based practice. They have a certain communal or dialogical tradition. So and certainly a way of life that they transmit. So in this sense, we cannot really have this kind of very romantic idea of just having this kind of insight like lightning, and that is all. Because prior to it, you need to prepare. And this preparation implies, once again, gradual enlightenment to a certain degree. Even Krishnamurti, he was speaking constantly about sudden enlightenment, but his students followed him for decades.
Yeah.
And we do need to acknowledge the fact that Krishnamurti himself was very frustrated near the end of his life, complaining that no one had awakened as a result of his discourse and teaching. So even so this is a much subtler and complex discussion.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's really depressing, Shai. I was really counting on just like that.
It depends how you're looking at that, Rich.
Yeah.
It may be depressing, it may be enlightening, right? So, I was listening to the great conversation between you and Shai. And so Shai was talking about Nityananda tradition. So is it the famous guru from the south, Nityananda?
Exactly, Bhagavan Nityananda, yes. The teacher of Swami Muktananda.
Okay,
yes.
Not the young one. There's another one.
No.
Okay, so I was kind of thinking about that because there's a belief that your guru is decided, like who will be your guru in the process of sadhana, in the process of yoga. So you have a guru, right? So Nityananda is the guru. So how did you come to him? Like, what are the background or what are the factors that kind of shaped your thinking and coming to him? So what, if you don't mind, would you like to tell something about that?
Well, of course, first of all, it should be clarified that, of course, I didn't have the privilege of actually meeting Bhagavan Nityananda, because he died long before I was able to be interested in spirituality.
Yeah, they say gurus never die. Gurus never die, right?
That's very beautifully and powerfully put. Yes.
Yeah.
The gurus never really die. They actually are always here to a certain extent, guiding us and initiating us when we're open to it. Yes, thank you for saying that. This is, of course, very difficult to understand in a materialistic perception. Now, I would say that, first of all, that the gurus come to you, that it's not you who come to the guru. At a certain point, their presence reaches to you and touches you in a certain way, reminds you of your calling, but also of a certain opportunity to be initiated by them. So at a certain point, when I was in this profound Kundalini crisis, I actually felt that I was going to leave the body and to die very early in this life. So at the age of 26, this American yogi, initiated directly by Swami Muktananda, came to Israel, where I lived at that time. And he looked at me and he told me, "You have a lot to give to the world. You are," I didn't even understand what he was talking about, because I had absolutely I was just troubled by my condition. He said, "You are a rare flower, and you have a lot to give to the world, and therefore I'm going to commit myself to healing and treating you." And then he dedicated 2 years to just doing that. And in this way, he taught me all one could learn, at least fundamentally speaking, about Kundalini, the ancient chakra system, and the subtle body. So these were 7 precious years that helped me to crystallize my understanding of the subtle mechanisms of transformation. And as a result, I would say that this has been the greatest gift of Nityananda, because his emphasis was Kundalini, subtle body, and transmitted by way of Shaktipat, by way of Guru energy, cosmic energy.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, so is there a particular emphasis on a particular kind of yoga, like we said Tantra yoga, Raj yoga, or you apply all kind of yoga that help you to have that realization, or you emphasize a particular path, a particular way of doing that sadhana, doing that yoga? So again, I'm kind of curious to know, because different gurus emphasize different processes, different methods.
Right. Yes.
So I'll be interested to know, do you emphasize your guru a particular way of living, particular way of doing things? I don't know if it is a right question, but would like to say something about that.
Of course, you're asking me whether what method or what path I teach, right?
Yeah, like
yes,
like there are 6 major paths: Gyan, Yoga, Bhakti, Tantra, Raj, those kind of things. Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good question. Well, it is the answer is twofold, I would say. One, yes, I would say that primarily what I'm teaching, inspired also by Swami Muktananda, by my American yogi, his name is Gabriel Cousins, is the tantric way. Although I mainly focus on Vajrayana, the tantric Buddhism. Mm-hmm. I know that this may sound odd because I originally come from a Hindu tradition, But I found there in their practices inner fire, especially the Tumo meditation, and the whole perception of tantric Buddhism. I found great truth in it, and also a tremendous transformative potential. So this is what I'm focusing on. However, and this is very important to indicate,
Right.
I don't experience myself or identify myself as a Vedantist or as a Buddhist or as a tantric. And this is I think where I actually meet Krishnamurti. This is my meeting point with Krishnamurti. Yeah. That I don't believe in identifying myself as with a certain tradition. This means being a Buddhist or being a Christian or being a Vedantist. Actually, I feel that ultimately liberation or freedom is this identity, or is the sense of being free from all perspectives. Yeah. Never settling into any kind of.
Possible, Shai? Is that possible?
Is that possible?
Yeah, not to identify with any perspective. So you are kind of rising above, rising beyond perspectives. But is it possible practically?
I think the question is, what do you mean by possible? If you mean by way of life,
okay.
I think if we observe one's way of life, well, we can derive some persistent ethical responses to life, right. Which so we can say yes. Well, that is not possible. There is a certain persistent response to life. This we can identify also in Krishnamurti. But is this possible at the level of the mind? And this is, I think, what is so interesting, because, and this is where we also have to return to at the end of the day. Am I able to return to this untainted mind, this mind that has been unaffected, unshaped by time, by circumstances, by conditioning? I said this is absolutely possible, and also a necessity in terms of liberation. If at the root of my mind I still experience myself as a Buddhist, as a Christian, then in what sense have I been liberated from any kind of identity? You see, so any kind of limiting patterns. So I would say the difference between me and Krishnamurti, not that I compare myself to someone at the level of Krishnamurti, but in terms of way of thinking, is that he used to speak of all-inclusive negation. All-inclusive negation, this means that he practically rejected any kind of pattern of thought, any kind of tradition, any kind of approach to truth. And I, on the other hand, I advocate as an interesting state of all-inclusive affirmation.
Exactly, I was thinking about that. I was exactly thinking about that. Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by that? I'm interested.
So like, I was just thinking in a very linguistic way, like all-inclusive negation, and then the opposite is
yes,
affirmation.
Yes, exactly, because ultimately this is the same state of consciousness.
Yeah, but doesn't that bring us to? I mean, there is a very famous argument. We all know that every affirmation is a negation, right? Or every determination is a negation, right? So again, sometimes, because I am quite interested, and I believe I am part of this thinking.
Yes.
So all-inclusive affirmation it's really great. I mean, I wish we all are part of that thinking. It's a very enabling, enriching thinking. But when we say all-inclusive affirmation, so that kind of presuppose we include everything, we know everything. So it's sometimes, it's kind of looks like like we say God is ineffable, right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
in Sanskrit, we call it abang manas gochara, right? Beyond words, beyond thought, and beyond
Yes.
everything. And so to conceive inconceivable kind of thing, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it's kind of, it looks kind of making possible the impossible, right? Kind of thing. We're kind of attempting to make impossible possible. I think, can I say that when we talk about, I mean, it's like you are flying to the sky, going high, and you see everything, right? Everything, every being, kind of thing. And I would love to, at least in imagination, to think about that.
Right.
And I think that will be the most beautiful thing. But how far it is possible? Like that's a come to possibility to, and also you talked about identity, right? Like, so we don't identify with a particular sect, particular religion, particular culture, but we have that identity, that God consciousness, right? That identity. And I'm glad I was listening to your experience that, enlightenment. And obviously, I think perhaps it will vary from person to person. I mean, different ways of realizing the God. But I really like this concept, all-inclusive affirmation. Would you like to say something more about that?
Yes, well, I would say two things. First, thank you for these beautiful words. First, I would say yes, it is possible at the level of consciousness. I think that I always tell people when I teach, be careful of thinking that you are God. Yeah. Because sometimes we say there is nothing, that there is only God. This is this non-dualistic perception. But I keep telling people, can you create black holes? Can you create supernovas? Can you create trees? You have no idea how you even came into being. So how can we be that arrogant? We should be really careful and maintain this kind of dualistic, non-dualistic perception. You say, well, we should never fall into the trap of saying that there's only God in the sense that we are it. But at the level of consciousness, we're allowed to at least, how would you say it, submerge our consciousness or absorb our own consciousness in the universal consciousness. This doesn't mean that we are all knowers. No, we can't be all knowers. It doesn't mean that we are all that we are capable of manifesting certain things, of creating, but we are capable of at least having this kind of God-like vision that indeed includes all. Yeah. Now, this is the first thing, and then the second thing is about this all-inclusive affirmation. What does that mean? It means that to a certain degree, because you're free, because your mind is untainted, inclusive, universal, and untouched by any perspective, you are also able to travel through any perspective and to embody it for a while, and then to leave it behind and return to your free state, free abode. You see, so this is the thing. When I teach, for instance, the Gospels, I become completely Christian. I see like a Christian. I think like a Christian because there is no separation. The mind can simply merge with this kind of perception.
But is it possible to teach Gospels without being a Christian?
The essence of the Gospels, to live according to the Gospels, you have to become an actual and ethically or a Christian in the ethical sense. You have to live like a Christian, and this is already something else. So can I extract the essence of Christianity, the essence of the message at the level of consciousness, at the level of the transformation of our perception? Yes, of course.
So in that way, are you not bound by that Christian perspective because you are not rising above Christianity? Again, I'm juggling with that kind of
Yes, yes, interesting. Yes.
So you have to be Christian to understand Christianity, to understand Gospels. But is that not a limiting view that because you are bounded by that Christianity thinking, and that doesn't provide you the universal cosmic think that perspective, right? That kind of like
Yes.
all inclusive.
Yes.
That is not absolute. That is kind of a relative thinking, right?
Yes, and well, I think that this is exactly the reason that many Christians are prevented from fully comprehending the Gospels, because when you are bound in terms of conditioning, cultural conditioning, to a certain perception, a certain perhaps ritualistic lifestyle, or the church, the perspective of the church, you have a limited view of what Jesus actually conveyed. So I think that this may prevent you from going all the way directly to the essence, to the root of Christ consciousness, and to be able to embody it. So I think this requires at least a certain level of freedom, which for me, this has been Krishnamurti's gift to me. You see, because when I try to understand Krishnamurti, I'm not a Krishnamurtist. I don't think that his teaching was.
But I think he provides kind of intellectual inquiry, that kind of tool to question everything, to challenge everything. I think that is the beauty of Krishnamurti.
Exactly.
It's fascinating discussion. Again, when I'm asking questions, I'm asking myself as well. I'm kind of, it's kind of, we are working together now. It's kind of co-exploring things. So it's really fascinating. And my background, I believe in the great things you are saying, but I come from, so my PhD is in conflict resolution. So I believe in how to resolve conflict. So I have been to different parts of the world, exploring conflict, doing research, publishing. So I when I think about all these ideas, I think about practicality, how far they're applicable to daily life, to conflict in Ukraine, in Kashmir, in Middle East.
Yes,
so you are from Middle East originally.
Right. Yes.
So I will have two questions. They're interrelated. One, like the great experience you have. I certainly believe word by word what you said. So I can completely empathize what you're saying. So are you happy with the kind of impact you have on your community, on your friends, on your circles, whether it is online, face-to-face? So are you happy the kind of education we are giving, the impact it is on the people? That's the first question. Second is, how far they're going to address the larger societal problem or international problems? Because I think there's a kind of counter trend. We are talking about spirituality, great things, but at the same time, we see polarization, conflict, violence going on. So there's kind of wide charging kind of happening. So first thing is how you think it is impacting the people, and second, do you think it can have a larger impact? Maybe some kind of I wish kind of big bang impact on the society to transform the whole human thinking, politics, and conflict.
Oh, that's a big question. Actually, I think a multitude of questions disguised as one question. Well, well, first of all, that's a tricky question, whether I'm happy or not in terms of my impact on people, because I think, first of all, when you have this kind of universal urge, this and that results in this in insatiable universal compassion, there's never an end to to the transformation of the world. And in that sense, I don't think that there can be a satisfaction in this type of work, really. And add to that the fact that nowadays, well, I think that the true mystical way of life is actually threatened, because I think that nowadays we can hardly really follow the mystical way of life. One needs to be extremely radical in one's approach. And I think that most people simply look for a consoling, comforting spirituality that is extremely flat. I speak about, I don't know, I teach the Upanishads, and people ask me about self-acceptance, you see? So it's this kind of divide, this kind of gap that sometimes feel unbridgeable. So if you ask me about happiness, then I would say I would be very happy to meet people who are really keenly interested in transformation for its own sake, transformation for the sake of truth knowing, rather than something that is self-benefiting. Because I think nowadays we've mixed the two in a way that that is completely indistinguishable. We don't know. People speak about enlightenment,
Right.
but it's actually self-fulfillment. I talk about Atman in terms of the universal self, and people think about loving the self, you see? So this has become so difficult that I think, well, sometimes I envy the great traditional gurus, but then I comfort myself because I remember that even Bhagavan Nityananda, he was so sad, on the verge of tears actually, near the end of his life, because he spoke about enlightenment, but people came to him asking Bhagavan, could you please give me a new car? So I think that has been the frustration of all teachers throughout the ages.
Yeah, just to add to that, there's a famous saying that again, this kind of typical Hindu spiritual thinking, like God has the kingdom and he has all the riches. He can give all kind of wealth, but people ask little things, right? They ask
Exactly.
a job, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you find that the problem you're talking about, as far as, you know, what do you want to call it? The trivializing of the profound insights you're talking about is particularly symptomatic, say, of Western cultures that are sort of these post-industrial, commercialized, secular sort of very much invested in a superficial sense of ego, as opposed to perhaps other cultures that may be more ready, maybe because they're more traditional and they're more steeped in traditions that make people more accepting of non-egoic kind of ways of thinking. And I don't know. Do you think that what you're talking, the phenomenon you're talking about, is particularly bad now in modern, especially Western civilization, or is it just a universal problem? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's both. It's inherently universal. Yes, it's the human condition, but it is also, I think, it has been aggravated by the Western and modern and secular society. I think we need to distinguish here the Western approach to spirituality, which is basically product-based, from God-centered spiritual activity. You see, the product-based approach treats spirituality, well, as if it were something that is meant to give you something. You see, so what are my benefits? When I speak of meditation, I am asked, so what can this give me? Can it lower my blood pressure? Can it help me to sleep better? And this is because we think of how we can appropriate everything, including the guru, by the way. Even the guru is what has become what Krishnamurti called pet guru. You see, it's something that you contain, that you appropriate, that is yours to cultivate and to and the guru is meant to simply promise you unconditional love. The guru is not here to challenge you, is not here to threaten your ego, is only to pamper you, to love you, and to make you feel good. And this is, I think, one of the greatest strategies of our time. Now, I think that in cultures that are more God-centered, it makes sense psychologically. It doesn't occur to these cultures that the oneself is the center of the universe. So it's not directed. It's not that God and the spiritual activity are directed to the healing, to the improvement, to the perfection of my experience of myself, but that I am going out of myself. I am leaving myself behind. That is the essence of surrender and devotion, and we really don't have that, and we've really lost it, and that's one of my sorrows.
I particularly like that unconditional love and unconditional surrender, right? Total surrender.
Both of those things, I guess, involve losing yourself. You've got to you can't unconditionally love anything unless you do that.
So coming back to my earlier question, like, because I am always concerned about peace. That's the research I do. So again, I'm asking myself and you, Shai, as well. How can we harness spiritual energy to have global peace, or peace kind of enabling peace? Because I am from political science. When I look at India, we have conflict, Hindu-Muslim conflict, right? If you look at Russia-Ukraine conflict, right? In America, we have a lot of gun violence. We have political polarization. There's a lot of going on. Because I'm in Florida now, we have a lot of talk going. My friends will agree with me. We all talk about a lot of things about all those things. Polarization, conflict, violence, and how we can use these kind of ideas, these kind of energies to bring peace to ourselves, to our community, to our society. I know there is no easy solution to that, no easy answer, but I will be interested to know what do you think about this?
First of all, I'm so touched that you are so concerned with these matters, because it is, I think, again, what it is a paradoxical and delicate situation when you explore the transformative perspective, because one, spirituality is all about leaving the world behind, right? And perceiving somehow the world
is it so? I mean, or taking the world with you, or is it leaving the world behind?
Well, if you want to yes, exactly, but it's in a way it's almost like devouring the multiplicity. It's like devouring the many into some kind of an all-consuming one. You see, so in this sense, you have to demolish these kinds of barriers and individuals and the very conception of the many. Now, the thing is that when this happens to you, you find yourself in a very delicate situation in which you're not sure whether the world condition should concern you or not. You see, so this is one, and it's very important to understand that there is a dilemma here that is relevant and that is fair, because experientially speaking, you do find yourself in this kind of ethical meditation. Now, on the other hand, I believe that the only way that spirituality can ever become relevant to the future of humanity and more importantly to the present of humanity is when we begin to actually direct the mystical states of consciousness and the mystical perception of the universe into our life, into our human life. For instance, just to give you an example, one of the things that I do in my work, I bring people, I developed a certain method called the expansion method. So what I do is that I lead people to an expanded state of consciousness. They actually experience themselves as light, as limitlessness, as the divine. And then I tell them, now from here, now begin to heal your relationships, now begin to approach your traumas, now it begin to make decisions. So in this way, we are beginning to direct the mystical revelation to have its face to have it face the world rather than face the infinite. So if we do that, we are beginning to finally spirituality will become perhaps manifest in the world, because how can it be that the Hindus, for instance, who naturally believe in the universality of consciousness, how can they be in conflict with anyone, right?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's only when we separate the mystical and the religious from the political and ethical implications.
Yeah.
We don't follow our own conclusions all the way, and that is
Absolutely.
this doesn't make sense. So I think if we have determined, and I think this is also the responsibility of religious and spiritual leaders to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I wrote somewhere that the religious spiritual leaders, they have a role to play in this process. And I like your expansion method, and I must say that you expanded all of us in this meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to digest here. I was going to ask you, and interestingly, I think in our collective and individual research and publications, we've talked about this. As a matter of fact, in terms of the political, sort of social political philosophy that might derive from this notion, and more importantly, activism. The idea. I was just listening Shai, to your recent lectures. I guess they're recent, on Socrates. And I was thinking about, we talk extensively about Plato in one of our recent books.
Yes.
And I was thinking about the dilemma in Plato's Republic, where he sort of conceded, Socrates sort of conceded, well, the very people who would be the ones you'd want to lead society, because they're the enlightened ones, have no interest in that kind of stuff. And you look at society now. I mean, it seems as though we have political systems and social sort of hierarchies and business hierarchies, for that matter, in which that just sort of discourage the very kind of people that would be best equipped to be enlightened leaders from taking any interest in doing that, right? It's almost like there's this ethic that pervades our public life, where it's almost encourages the worst, not the worst kind of people, certainly not the most enlightened kind of people. They're people who are ego-driven and ambitious, ambition-driven, and power-driven and money-driven, to assume positions of leadership, and we tend to reward the systems that we have seem to reward that, as opposed to spiritual people. But Miguel is always so courteous, and never. I know you've got things to ask, and we're winding down as far as time. I don't want to exclude you from this conversation, and I know we've been dancing around a lot of topics that I would think you're very much attuned to yourself. So I don't know if you wanted to issue any words of protest or condemnation.
I was waiting here patiently to explode. This is a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I'm taking it in, but at the same time, there is a lot to discuss, and we definitely have to have a part 2 and 3 and 4, because, well, just to go back, I know, we are kind of running out of time, but I definitely want to touch back on, there was brought up you have to be kind of like a Christian to
Yeah. I was
understand the
thinking about that.
Gospels or
Yeah.
preach the Gospels or whatever. As a lifelong Christian, I read your blog, Shai, on the childlike heart of Jesus. And let me tell you, I was so impressed. I was taken to another realm. Really, it had echoes of Bonhoeffer in there, Dietrich Bonhoeffer as well. And I was also viewing another type of video like this last night, where they were talking about him and about us, that we cannot do for ourselves, that it is God that does through us. So I just saw a lot of similarities there, and of course Bonhoeffer is considered one of the greatest Christians in mid 20th century theologians. And I have to say, you at that point, Shai, you did become a Christian as you were writing that. I was just very touched, very impressed, enlightened by that, how deeply those words were, and how true, and how Christian, as well as how even beyond Christianity, how that you can relate that to any religion, or and even any ethics, if you will. So I just wanted to compliment you on that. I think the first 5 minutes in the church, they call benediction when the service is over, the sermon is over, and they say we can call benediction now because it was so good. So I believe the first 5 minutes of you speaking, Shai, in this interview, we could have called benediction because it was already a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. I am just so really touched by you. If I probably had infrared vision, I could see an aura or something around you right now. From the moment that you came on the screen, there was an essence about you. So I think we were all blessed and somewhat incrementally enlightened, at the very least today, to know you and to speak with you.
Thank you so much for this profound perception. Thank you.
Wow. And I don't know
if
the time is. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
No. I think.
No, I was just saying. If our time, I haven't really kept track, but I think we're about where we wanted to be. If that would be a great positive note to conclude on, I suppose.
Yes, these wonderful words. Yes.
And I do have, I have a multitude of other questions. I guess I'm going to have to harass you via email, unless we can come back again. And I second everything that Miguel said and Aravinda said. This is really, really fascinating discussion.
No, thank you again. Thank you, Shai. Thank you so much. We are thankful to you. We are grateful to you that you came here, and we found a lot of similarities in our thinking. I think that's great.
Yes.
In fact, one of the mission of our forum is to invite similar-minded people, think alike, and developing some kind of global family of similar thinking people. And so thank you very much and welcome to our family. I mean, think of as a family. And I think this is not the last time we are meeting, and hopefully we'll meet more, interact more, and we'll be part of the transformative consciousness together. So
Thank you so much. It's an honor being considered a part of your family, because I greatly appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your project, for your endeavor.
And I don't know, Miguel, if you want to read
Yeah.
us out. You always, it's up to you.
Yes,
You usually conclude the proceedings, so.
I'll do that, but definitely we want to have you back soon, Shai. I definitely want to talk about Cosmos and Camus.
Oh,
which are
I love
my
that.
favorite.
I'd love that. Yes.
Science fiction and Camus being one of my favorite
Oh.
philosophers. I mean, we can go on and on. I mean, we can talk for hours. So definitely, would love to have you back soon. And
That's like Cosmos and Camus is for me like the other half of the of truth.
Yeah.
There is on the one hand spirituality, on the other hand absurdity, and then both are valid.
yes,
Absolutely. Yep.
I agree. I agree.
Yes, yes.
So I'll conclude by saying thank you, folks, for tuning in, and continue so that you can watch these types of excellent talks and conversations with people like Shai Tubali. So we wish you well, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and also tune into our website, infinitediscoveries.org, infinitediscoveries.org. With that, be well, and until we meet again, take care, everyone.